Hi, thanks for joining me on the Listen Up Girl podcast. Today is Monday, August the 3rd, and I am bringing you the LGBTQ plus news, and I'm your host, Zach Randles-Friedman. Today, we got a messy Republican family feud, a political scandal involving a very dark accusation, a devastating story about a school being held accountable for a life it failed to protect, a hidden slice of trans history from the Catskills, and a TikTok moment that will make you smile, and a genuinely happy engagement to close things out. So, 6 stories, a little room to sit with each of them today. So, let's get into it. First, the Graham family drama nobody asked for. So, it started today in the world of Republican politics because there's a new candidate running for office, and her last name may sound very familiar. Darlene Graham has entered a political race and used her very first ad to attack transgender people, which on its own is about as predictable as sunrise in the political climate. But here's the detail that makes this one worth talking about. She's related to a very prominent, very recently deceased senator whose name carried real weight in that state for decades. And the orange convicted felon has already endorsed her, presumably assuming that the name recognition plus an anti trans ad equals an easy win. Except that's not what's happening. State Republicans are reportedly skeptical of the endorsement will be enough to actually get her elected, and the skepticism is real. Headline here. This isn't a case of a party rallying around a rising star. It's a case of a party insiders looking at transphobic opening ad and quietly wondering if she's overplaying a hand that doesn't have strength to use it. We've talked about on this show before how anti-trans rhetoric used to be an automatically play, cheap, reliable guarantee to fire up a base, but we're watching now over and over. It is that same play getting a colder reception from the very people who used to cheer for it. That doesn't mean the danger is gone, though. It means the ground under it is shifting, and it's shifting slowly, story by story, ad by ad. We'll keep an eye on this race, and it's going to tell us something, and I'll bring you updates as they come through. Next, a GOP congressman, a GOP senator, and an alleged threat. So this next one is messy, tangled, and honestly a little bit hard to summarize cleanly. But stick with me here because it says a lot about how the party operates behind closed doors. A veteran gay journalist has publicly suggested that a scandal-plagued Republican congressman may have made a veiled threat to an out Republican senator over an old allegation involving sex with men. The two men are connected by family. The senator's daughter was once married to the congressman, which makes what's underneath this story even darker. The congressman is currently facing serious accusations of abuse involving his ex-wife and their child, allegations he denies. And in the middle of that, the senator, his former father-in-law, politically has stayed almost entirely silent, even while publicly defending himself against a separate, decades-old story about an alleged incident from his own past, one that a former staffer has now called an aborted prank. That explanation, according to the journalist reporting on all of this, doesn't really hold up under scrutiny. Why would a prank look exactly like a solicitation for sex? Why would someone accused of pulling that kind of prank end up as a friend and a campaign donor late years later? I want to be very clear about what this story is and isn't. It is not a story about anyone's sexuality being inherently newsworthy. It is a story about a political culture where the closet gets treated as a weapon of last resort, something to be threatened, hinted at, and dangled. And the second it becomes political convenient. Meanwhile, actual allegations of the violence against a child are met with careful, lawyered statements about prioritizing safety and well being, while an old rumor about a consensual sex between adults gets the bigger reaction. The imbalance tells you everything about what this party actually protects and what it doesn't. Not a shock at all. Next, a school is paying for what it ignored. So this next one is hard, and I want to stay up front because it involves a young person we lost. A 17-year-old named Miles Fitzpatrick died by suicide after enduring relentless bullying in high school. And now the school district is facing consequences because the teachers reportedly ignored what was going to be happening to him. 17 years old. That's a junior in high school. That's someone who should have had years ahead of him: prom, graduation, a first apartment, a whole life he never got a chance to build. And what makes this story especially gutting is the word ignored, not didn't notice, not missed the signs, ignored. Meaning, by reporting on cases like this, there were signs, there were complaints, there were moments where an adult in the building could have stepped and chose not to or didn't take it seriously enough to act. Now, the fact, after it's too late to matter to Miles, the school is facing financial and legal consequences of that inaction. I wish accountability moved faster than tragedy. It almost never does. And I'm not going to sit here and turn this into a headline and move on. If you're a parent, a teacher, an aunt, an uncle, a coach, a neighbor, please take it seriously when a kid tells you that they're being tormented. Don't wait for a lawsuit to prove it. That won't matter then. It always mattered the first time it was said out loud. If you or someone you love is struggling, the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline is available anytime, day or night, by calling or texting. The Trevor Project also has resources built specifically for LGBTQ youth at 1-866-488-7386. You are not alone, and this show will always make space for that reminder. So thanks for listening to that. The next story is The Secret House in the Catskills. So let's shift gears a little with history, because sometimes the past hands you something genuinely beautiful, and we could all use that today. There was a secret guest house tucked in the Catskills that became a refuge for trans women in the 1950s and 60s. A full generation before Stonewall, before pride flags, before most of the country had any language for what was happening inside those walls. Picture it, a quiet property in upstate New York at a time when simply existing as trans woman in public eye could get you arrested, institutionalized, or worse. And yet this house existed anyway. Women traveled there. They lived, even briefly, as themselves. The owner reportedly believed that dressing as your true self could bring, in her words, a little magic into the otherwise difficult life. A small, quiet act of defiance dressed up as hospitality. There was no movement yet, no legal framework, no visibility, just people deciding on their own in a house in the mountains that safety and self expression were worth building by hand if nobody was going to hand it to them. That's the through line of this entire community, honestly. Long before there were organizations, before there were laws to fight for or against people, we're already finding each other and building a sanctuary. It's a reminder that this history didn't start with a parade. It started in living rooms, guest houses, and quiet acts of trust between strangers who needed each other. I love that story. Next, chicken wing night at the lesbian's house. Okay, so we need something light after that, and this TikTok delivered exactly on time. A man went viral describing a dinner party at his lesbian neighbor's house, declaring at one point that lesbians are, in his own words, an elevated form of the human race. And listen, the details matter here because this wasn't a casual endorsement. The man walked his followers through the entire spread. Two kinds of wings: crispy fries, grilled zucchini, real baked beans, not the canned kind, street corn, mussels and white sauce, silk pie for dessert, in case anyone was wondering if these women were playing around. Then, and this is the part that really got him, he said the house was somehow spotless again before they even left. Like the cleanup happened invisibly while everyone was still eating. And on the way out, he and his wife got a goodie bag: wildflower seeds, a succulent. He held those items up on camera, looking, by his own account, nearly brought to tears by the whole experience. Look, we know this. We've always known this. Lesbians hosting culture is not new information to anyone in this community, but it genuinely kind of felt delightful watching the rest of the internet discover it in real time. One viral chicken wing night at a time. Somewhere a lesbian couple is reading their own comment section right now and feeling extremely seen. Oh, I love that. Two communities coming together. A proposal worth smiling about is our next story. And we're closing today on something joyful because after everything else in this episode, we have absolutely earned it. Sam Smith is engaged to fashion designer Christian Cowan. And by all accounts, Sam couldn't be happier. Reportedly, Sam shared that finally able to write songs about joy instead of heartbreak. And for the first time in a career that first found its footing on some of the most devastating breakup anthems of the last decade. Think about that for a second. An artist whose entire early catalog was built on longing and loss, now standing on the other side of that, engaged and reportedly writing from a completely different emotional place. That's the whole point, isn't it? Love doesn't just change your life, it changes what you're capable of creating, what you're capable of imagining for yourself and for your partner. Congratulations to Sam and Christian. I hope this is the beginning of a very different chapter set to a very different soundtrack. Congratulations. So that's today's show. A tough one in places, a joyful one in others. And honestly, that's usually how these days go. Thanks so much for listening to the Listen Up Girl podcast. If this episode resonated with you, share it with a friend, leave a review. And if you haven't subscribed, please do. I'm Zach Randles-Friedman. I'll be back tomorrow with more LGBTQ news. Thanks so much for listening. Have a great week.